just said. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to the middle of the week. Welcome to Wednesday. It got here faster because we didn't really have a full Monday, but it's still the day that we play the camel. Hit it, man.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Whoop, whoop. Yes, it is. It is hump day. We're getting you all the way to another weekend. Go home time on a Friday afternoon. Will be here before you know it. In the meantime, we're glad you're with us. And at, Rightside Radio and pushing buttons so ably on the board, that would be JP. Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm great on hump day. How are you?
I am good. Camel.
Bring
it. And apparently WVNN in Huntsville, our Huntsville affiliate, is up and running. Am I right?
Allegedly.
I'm
just
okay.
kidding.
Don't say that. Are they good to go?
Yeah, they're good to go. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we appreciate the folks at WVNN. They've been working overtime trying to get their systems back online since they got fried during that storm last week, and all good. We are still working with an issue with our phones here in the studio. We can have some guests call in through a technological feat we call Clean Feed, but we can't get regular phone calls. However, your text lines will absolutely be open. So please jump on in where you can and hang on and send us texts to 833-687-4448. All right, I got a lot of stuff on the slate today. So you may have heard there was an announcement yesterday. We talked about it on the air. But U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville has announced that he is running for governor of the state of Alabama. It's made national news. It's a big, hairy deal. It's totally upended politics in the state of Alabama, I can tell you. And Coach Tuberville will be on the air with us at 2:30. So coming up at the bottom of hour number one here, you're going to hear U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville on his run for governor of the state of Alabama. And then, you know the deal. It's Wednesday. It's the middle of the week. It's hump day. So we got to have the Grand Council. My brethren, Jeff Poore and Dale Jackson, both chiming in on the issues of the day. We ping each other with questions and see where it falls. But yeah, the Grand Council kicking off hour number 3 today. And then I've still got a triple dipper. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, I'm just calling it all in because, Lord, it's all in, man. Alabama politics are about to be something like you've never seen before. If you're a politico, if you follow politics, or for that matter, if you just you're aware that people run for office and you vote once in a while, it's going to be a bigger year than we have ever seen. I mean, with the exception of presidential politics, I don't know that we could have ever seen something develop like what we're seeing in Alabama with all the open seats, with the U.S. Senate seat, with the governor's race, with all of it. So all in, that's what I'm calling number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, I didn't get to it yesterday. The plan is to get to it today, and I even added more to it. I'm calling it We Want to Know. All right, we want to know whose cocaine bag that was in the White House. And we want to know, dadgummit, who was it that leaked the Roe v. Wade decision from the Supreme Court? And several other things, which, by the way, we're now learning are about to be reinvestigated. Yes, indeed. We got the word that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino have now said we are pursuing these investigations. They are not closed. So that's cool. We'll talk about it because we want to know. Number 2, Triple Dipper. And then number 3, I'm just calling it the Ivy League Wars. The Ivy League Wars. Man, the Trump administration is wearing out the Ivy League. The elite universities that charge so much for tuition have massive endowments and then want more of your tax dollars just to make things fun. And yet they'll do nothing to curb anti-Semitism and other wokeness on their campuses. We'll talk about it. Number 3 on the Triple Dipper is called the Ivy League Wars, and we'll cover down on some ground on that. All right, let me jump on into the Rightside Way opening monologue, and I will tell you guys, for those of y'all that are live streaming the show, there's going to be some pictures on the screen here at some point. This is going to be me discussing some things that I experienced personally in Baghdad. And I want you guys to see the images of what I'm talking about. So if you're live streaming, just be aware there will be some imagery up on the screen here periodically throughout my monologue. But I'll tell you too, Attorney Stan McDonald is the sponsor daily of the Rightside Way monologue. Stan McDonald, a 30-year veteran in the practice of law in Alabama, a long-time Rightside ruffian. And oh, by the way, the sponsor daily of the Rightside Way. And I'll tell you more about Stan here in just a few minutes. Okay, so yesterday I spent a great deal of time talking about peace through strength, right? The idea that having a more robust, capable, well-trained military, we could actually deter our enemies without even having to fire a shot, hopefully. I mean, simply because our enemies knew that firing shots is something the U.S. military could do extremely well, and they don't want us to do that. Let me give you a smaller version of peace through strength. Picture this. There's a tendency for criminals to prey on the weak. There just is. You're walking out of a Walmart into a dark parking lot with a cart full of goods, and if you're slumped over your basket, staring at your cell phone, paying no attention to your surroundings while you amble your way to your car, bad guys are going to spot you from a distance, and they're going to see you as an easy prey. If you walk out that same door into that same parking lot and you've parked under the lights and your head is up on a swivel and you're taking in your surroundings and you look like you fully intend to be a person who might resist, guess what? Your odds of strength, your odds of getting mugged are decreased dramatically by your strength. All you did was project strength. It's no different on the world stage. I mean, literally, picture the world as a dark Walmart parking lot. The U.S. needs to walk with its head up looking like a hard target. Having said that, though, there are some preparations, some things you can do. There are some supplies, some materiel, if you will, some weapon systems. And we've got to spend our time and resources giving our troops the absolute best in order to be the biggest dog on the block. I agree with Secretary of Defense Hegseth. No more electric tanks, no more climate change alarmism, no more DEI in uniform. Give them what they need to be the biggest, baddest dog on the block. Now, before I get into that a little more, let me just say this. I used to do a lot of backpacking back in the day. I love the outdoors. To me, one of the richest times in life is sitting with friends around a campfire after a solid day's hike. My favorite is actually winter backpacking, and I've been out in some ice storms that have rocked our world. I've been above the tree line in the Rockies. I've spent time in the Smokies and along the lower Appalachian Trail. With winter backpacking, it's different. The temperatures, the threats of inclement weather, they mean you have to carry more stuff. And you get into that fine line of how much to carry, knowing you don't want to freeze to death, but then again, you don't want to carry so much, you create a different kind of misery because you're carrying too much weight. Me personally, I'm a big guy, so I usually erred on the side of carrying just one more thing. And yes, sometimes it was hard, but having had frostbite before in my military days, I was determined not to be in that position again. So my rule, and yes, it was a rule, my rule, and I used to say it all the time, was you can always take off what you don't need, but you can't put on what you don't have. That's a good rule. Dry socks, an extra shirt, and my favorite fleece. It may take more to get those things to the campsite, but once you're there, they make everything better. You can't take off what you don't, you can take off what you don't need, but you can't put on what you don't have. Look, I also know what it means, though, to go without. I know what it means to be in a hard place doing hard things without the right gear. It ain't good. In 2004, I was in Baghdad during the era of soft-sided Humvees. Look, I got to tell you, there is zero protection from a canvas door, I assure you. All the canvas doors did was keep the dust and the sun directly off of us, nothing more. My team was initially task organized under an infantry battalion of the 1st Armored Division, and they all drove soft-sided vehicles. And we began to branch out and have to hire local Iraqi labor to cut steel and hang them on the hinges, except the steel was too heavy for the hinges, and the hinges had a tendency to break off. So we had to put reinforced hinges on. And they also had no glass. They were just steel half doors, but it still felt better. And then we contracted with local labor to big old steel shells for the truck beds of some of our Humvees. And then we scrounged up some Kevlar mats and we hung them on the outside of the vehicle for extra protection. And then we realized the undercarriage was thin protection, so we lined the floors with sandbags, which was all cool, but it also overwhelmed the suspension, and the Humvees would literally drive around with their noses pointed up in the air because of the weight on the rear. I'm just telling you, we had to beef up the suspensions, and by then, by the time we got things all steeled up, it looked like a bunch of vehicles from Mad Max. Now, JP is going to put a picture up of one of our armored gun trucks right now. And this is one of the ones I'm telling you about where we had like literally floorboards full of sandbags, extra steel casings in the back, fake doors that were added on. Everything was changed. We were doing all we can. It was so jacked up that we called them Jed Clampetts. Our vehicles were called Jed Clampetts after the junky old truck they drove in the Beverly Hillbillies sitcom. And that old rule about you can take off what you don't need, but you can't put on what you don't have was getting some serious use. And that rule is true. We couldn't put on anymore, but we also just didn't have enough of what we needed. All right, then came a changeover. The 1st Armored Division transitioned out of our battle space, and my team was then assigned to an infantry battalion under the 1st Cavalry Division. Every one of those Muldoons came to town in a brand new up-armored Humvee, complete with ballistic glass, hardened body shells, and reinforced suspensions, and of all things, they even had air conditioning. And they were fast. I mean, like they felt like Porsche fast. Our Jed Clampetts looked pretty sad next to those armored Cadillacs. But back at home, my sweet wife, the lovely Charlene, was praying. She was literally praying that God was going to put me in an armored vehicle. Somehow she knew the deal. She also knew what was available, and she was praying like only a military spouse knows how to pray. Literally praying, Lord, bless Phil with an armored vehicle. So one day on our fob, maybe a month after the new battalion took over, I was in the battalion talk, and the XO hollered at me to come to his office. The guy's name was Major Ed Tangy, a really good guy from Oregon. So I headed down the hall and came in to see him. He asked me a few questions about my team's operations. He asked about the level of effort we were applying to do things for the battalion. He also asked where we've been most recently, and then he seemed actually kind of surprised to hear how often my team went outside the wire. Little did I know that within his battalion, the battalion I was with, which I considered to be my battalion, the line companies actually rotated their time off the fob. But the XO looked at me and said, but you guys, you roll outside the gate pretty much every single day. Roger that, I said. And then you could have knocked me down with a feather when he said this. He said, well, then I'm giving you my up-armored Humvee. I kid you not. We couldn't put any more rigged up homespun fake armor on our old Jed Clampetts, but now we didn't have to. The XO treated us like one of his own. He gave us his personal armored vehicle. My call sign was Titan 6. So I sprayed the Tennessee Titans logo on the vehicle for good measure. JP's putting that picture up right now. That's a picture of me in Baghdad leaning against the back of our new up-armored Humvee with the Titans logo painted on it. Soon thereafter, I also sent Charlene a picture of me standing in front of my new fancy up-armored Humvee holding a sign that said, Happy Mother's Day. It was the best Mother's Day gift I could have sent her. And honestly, a few weeks later, when a massive car bomb, a VBID, went off next to my convoy, I was doubly glad to have it. But here's the thing, and here's why I bring all that up. That experience reinforced for me the idea that our troops should never have to be without. They shouldn't. They should not ever have to be faced with the decision of whether or not to over-modify their gear. I mean, it's one thing to buy your own holster or have a special thermal insulated long johns you want to wear, but no soldier should ever have to bet their life on subpar or, for that matter, obsolete gear. The United States has the greatest military on the face of the earth. And as a result, we have the largest military budgets in the history of ever. Our men and women deserve that. Is there waste, fraud, and abuse in the efforts made by the military-industrial complex? I am sure there is, absolutely. That's why conservatives have to step in and provide that accountability. That's why that DOGE effort is so needed. But we also have to stop wasting time spending precious defense dollars on woke ideologies, feel-good green energy compliant facilities, pushing to make our military vehicles compatible with the latest net zero emissions ideologies. We cannot have young troopers who get less time on a firing range or in their combat vehicle or servicing their helicopters because it's somehow imperative that they spend precious time training and attending seminar-style briefings on the dangers of not being gender-friendly or why co-ed showers are really not a big deal. Look, we need to give the men and women who serve in the greatest military in the history of the earth all the gear and the training that they really need to fight and win, to increase both their lethality and their survivability. Stop fluffing up the budgets with unnecessary social experimentation and get back to actually training and equipping warriors. Me personally, I've seen it firsthand. Our troops can always take off what they don't need, but our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines cannot put on what they don't have. So let's make sure we give them whatever they need to be the biggest dog on the block. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Yeah, there it was. Hope you saw the images. It's true. We had everything we did not need in a vehicle and made the best we could out of it. We put on stuff, we added on, we micromanaged our ability to try and protect ourselves with force defense measures, but nothing changed in terms of our true survivability rating until we actually got what we needed later. And that's a big deal. And we need to make sure that our troops have everything they need for both lethality and survivability. Bill Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. I got to tell you about attorney Stan McDonald. Yes, I do. Stan McDonald, a partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, a 30-year veteran in the practice of law in North Alabama, the daily sponsor of your Rightside Way monologue. Listen, Stan McDonald, I know him personally. He's not only the kind of guy that can advocate for your legal needs, but he's been an absolute warrior in the trenches, in the mix on the issues and the policies and the politics that right side ruffians care about. He's like an OG ruffian from way back. But yeah, attorney Stan McDonald, he has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He knows how to represent you in any local, state, or federal court. I like to say, if Stan McDonald is on your side, then yes, you're going to have no greater friend, and literally your adversaries would have no greater foe. There you go. Well, listen, I'm going to tell you how to reach him. You may want an attorney in North Alabama. I suggest him. Attorney Stan McDonald, the law firm is Wilmer and Lee. He's an America First family man. Here's his phone number, 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. And tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. I'd appreciate that. And then I got to do the thing. No representation made. The quality legal service be formed grade. The quality legal service for the lawyers. Oh my gosh.
I'm going to give you a 10 for that one.
Wow.
That was pretty perfect right there.
Might even need some applause. I think I need applause for that one. That was worthy. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll be in the area all day. Thank you. I got one text here. John from Huntsville is already in. He says, Phil, spectacular monologue. Also, did you hear there was some minor damage done to a building in Redstone? I did hear that. It was very close to some family members that live right outside the gate. Space and Rocket Center area in Huntsville due to what they're calling a rotating rain shower that formed a tornado. Said didn't even know that could even happen. Apparently it did. By the way, JP, your Atlanta Braves have forgotten how to win.
What else is
again,
new?
He says.
What else is new? We'll remember in about 2 days and then forget again.
What do you got, man?
Oh, we got a comment on the YouTube live stream. This one's from the Drumming Marine. Says, Phil, we were there at the same time, bro. I was in the Sunni Triangle region. Never got anywhere around Baghdad.
Yep. Oh, wow. Sunni Triangle. I had ops in and out of that area. We went from central Baghdad into the Sunni Triangle more than once, and we had a Fallujah mission that actually got pulled. But yeah, what was his name? The Drumming Marine?
Drumming Marine.
Drumming Marine. Appreciate you, man. Semper Fi. Thanks for your service. Thanks for being a part of the show. All right, we're taking a break. Coming right back. Scheduled to have U.S. Senator, now Governor candidate, Tommy Tuberville on the line. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew. I mean, it goes from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga, from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border from there to what we get to call once again Fort Benning. Fort Benning, and then big old patches in North Georgia, Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio audience. Yeah, then there's all you online people who podcast with us, live stream with us, and we can't tell you how much we appreciate you. This audience is the reason why we do what we do. All right, hey, listen, we're going to jump on a line here momentarily. So yesterday, the political world in Alabama and really around the nation got rocked with what has been known for quite a while was going to wind up happening, but it's official now. U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville has announced that he is running to be the next governor for the great state of Alabama. And he's on the line right now. Coach Tuberville, how you doing? We got him back? Yep. Is he still there?
He's showing still on there.
Hey, Coach, you got to unmute on your side. You there, Coach? Oh, crap. Did we just really lose him?
I'll work on it.
Okay, we're working on it right now. Listen, I will tell you right now, 1819 News has got a great piece today that came out talking about why he wants to run for governor. And you got to look at it and go, okay, you got a good gig, right? You got a good gig that you could stay in the U.S. Senate and be the guy who has been rocking the liberals' world left and right, but now you're going to run for governor. Hey, Coach Tuberville, you on the line right now? Hey, Coach, how you doing today?
That we're running to be the governor of the great state of Alabama, and we had a huge day of fundraising, broke all kind of records. But at the end of the day, we're doing the right thing. I want to be the leader of the state, and I heard you talk about the Senate. I am still in the Senate and going to work very, very hard with President Trump for the next year and a half. And after that point, it's going to hopefully downhill with President Trump, giving him a chance to just pick up momentum with all the things he's going to get done in the next year and a half.
Well, and yeah, and I totally agree. I think the things that are happening on a national scale that you've been a part of have been certainly absolutely worthwhile. And there have been times when I feel like you kind of stood by yourself even to get things done if necessary. So how does that play into you coming back home and working as the CEO for the state?
Well, first of all, what I've learned is invaluable to any governor. I don't think there's been many senators that's turned around and went back and been governor of the state. There might have been a few, but that's what I wanted to do at the beginning. But didn't work out because Kay Ivey had just gone in. I said, I'm gonna prepare, and President Trump asked me to run for Senate, and I did that, and I can't say it was a lot of fun the first 4 years, Phil. As you well know, the Biden administration tried to run our country into the ground, and but it's been outstanding in the last 5 months with President Trump. I talked to him a long time about the situation. He's all for it. He says, I'm sending power back to the states, Coach, and you'll be going in at a great time. And again, he is a huge fan of the state of Alabama. This is where he started his first campaign of run for president. And heck, he gets almost 80% of the vote here. So one of the most popular politicians ever for the state of Alabama is Donald J. Trump.
Well, and I would agree with that. I mean, I live in the 4th congressional district myself, which had the highest per capita vote of any congressional district in the nation, both elections, all 3 elections actually for Trump. Hey, let me ask you this, Coach. So you're looking at basically changing venues in terms of being in D.C. as opposed to now being in the Capitol here in Montgomery. Is there what are the agenda items? What's bringing you home that you can do better for the state of Alabama as a governor as opposed to being a senator? What's high on the list for you to accomplish?
Well, first of all, it's like taking a head coaching job. You're the head coach, and you got to put a staff around you. You can't do it by yourself. And so I'm going to put some real smart people in positions that's going to help us economically. It's going to help us with immigration, going to help us with our infrastructure, our health care, education. All those things need improvement. We have to get our handle on education in this state, Phil. We have so many kids in this state that are struggling on reading and writing. I hear all this stuff about no child left behind. We're not going to put words to it. We're going to put actions to it. And higher education will take care of itself. I'm going to be a big workforce development. My main job is to grow the state. And so President Trump, with these tariffs, has got people begging to come back into our country to build manufacturing. There's not a week goes by that I don't have a group come in from Europe or Asia or anywhere in this country wanting to come into the state of Alabama to build something. And so we got to have workforce development, and we got to places for them to go. And I'm the one I've recruited all my life, and so I'm going to spend a lot of time on the road recruiting people to come here, because if we can grow our economy in the state of Alabama, we can cut back taxes, and that's what people want. They're paying more and more taxes, but we need to pay less and less taxes, because growth will put more money into the system. More tax money will come to the state, and so therefore we can cut back on the taxes that Alabama residents pay.
Well, listen, I agree with every bit of that. When I was in the state Senate, that was actually my thing, was economic development, working as the chairman for the Economic Development Committee and everything else. But so I say all for it. Let me ask you about a couple other things, though. One of the things we've noticed is, especially since COVID, everybody became keenly aware of how much difference the right leadership can make in a state versus the wrong leadership. And I think that Alabama has been long overdue for someone who can be a very visible, out front, dynamic leader. And so how do you envision yourself? I don't mean like what your agenda is, but how do you envision yourself as the leader of the state? What, rallying people, moving things forward? What do you see?
Very accessible. You got to be out there selling your program. We'll have a game plan of about 10 things that we'll want to do. We'll push it to the people of Alabama, talk about how we can bring in more tax money, how we can bring in more things again in this state, how we can, we're doing really, really good, obviously, with federal money in Huntsville and also in Mobile with the things that are going on with Austal and Airbus. We've got to grow the other part of the state. But if you look at our situation, our health care is not great. It should be a lot better. And so we have got to keep more of our young people in the state. Phil, we go back to education. The problem that we're having, and I've noticed this for 25 years that I've lived in the state, is that we have a lot of our kids that are educated, whether it's Alabama, whether it's Jackson State, from North Alabama, Auburn, Tuskegee, anywhere, but they leave. They go to Nashville, they go to New Orleans, they go to Orlando, they go to Atlanta. We've got to keep them in our state. That's the number one commodity that a state can have, is educated young people that believe in the state that they live in. And so I'm going to be out very accessible to the people of the state. We're going to work on it together, 5 million of us. And we got to grow that number, and they'll come. All we've got to do is put that invitation out there where they'll come into our state and be good citizens, tax-paying citizens, where we can continue to grow our state and educate our kids.
Well, I listen, yes, to all the above. And having raised my kids in Alabama, I completely agree. Hey, so let me ask you this, Coach. Speaking of the state in which they live, Democrats are already calling out that they're going to be attacking you. They're not attacking you on the merits. They don't have any politics. They don't even have a candidate right now. I don't think they can field a good candidate for governor. They say, though, they're going to be attacking you on the question of whether you actually live in Alabama. And they're even going to file suit if they have to, according to Randy Kelly, the head guy at the Alabama Democrat Party. Now, I think they're a clown show, but at the same time, you got to be able to answer the question. So how do you answer the question about the residency that they've been talking about?
When I started running, Phil, it was 2019, by the way. If you count back 2019 till next year, it's 7 years of continued residency. But I've lived in Alabama most of 25 years. I've owned land here for 25 years straight. My 2 kids graduated and were educated in this state. Sure, after I left Auburn, I went to Texas Tech 3 years, and I went to Cincinnati for 4 years. Then I came back here. I never sold, but I moved back again. I got I think my last driver's license 2019, 2018. I've been paying property tax here. Let them come after me. I don't care that they have nothing else. Uh, Obviously, a lot of people came after me before I announced because they didn't want me to get in the race because they know they can't control me. I'm not a controllable person. I went to Washington, D.C., and it was United States Senator, and I spent less money than anybody up there to get elected. I spent less than $3 million that I raised to go to Washington, D.C., when Doug Jones spent $40 million in 4 months. People know me. People trust me. They've known me for 25 years in the state. If they want to bring that stuff at me, fine. I've talked to lawyers. I've talked to judges. I've talked to the Republican Party, John Wall, who has no doubt that I'm fully qualified from a residential standpoint to be the governor of this state. And so bring it on is all I can tell them.
Fair enough. Well, listen, Coach, with about a minute left, I will tell you, and I believe I said this to you once in the past, is that the phrase that keeps coming to my mind, and I think Alabama deserves a God-fearing gunslinger for a governor. And I've written on that topic, and I've talked about what that means. But do you see yourself as a God-fearing gunslinger in office?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. You know, I don't do things like people normally do. I look at it and I put people together and we put a plan together and we go after it. It's not going to be business as usual. I'll tell you that. And there's a lot of things that we have to correct in this state before we can go forward. But yeah, I'm anxious to get going again. I'm going to spend another 18 months with President Trump, and we're going to get the federal side going. And I'm looking forward to the election next May. Then having some Democrat supposedly run against us. We'll run the score upon them. At the end of the day, we'll take office in 2027, and it'll be a new sheriff in town, as you just said.
Well, fair enough. Well, listen, I got to leave it there, but Coach Tommy Tuberville, U.S. Senator and now candidate for governor for the great state of Alabama, we appreciate your time, and we're going to have you on again, I am sure.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you. Take care. Well, I tell you what, though, listen. I think first of all, I think he had his talking points, JP. I think he definitely had his talking points for that discussion, which is expected. But what I loved was when I asked him the question about them claiming your residency is an issue, and I could hear him come off the talking points and just be ready to fight somebody.
Yeah. Let them come after me.
Let them come after me.
That's all they got.
I don't. Is that all they got? But yeah, and I think it's true. One thing I said, I think it was yesterday to Jared Hudson, actually, when he was on the show, is that his nickname when he was coaching was the Riverboat Gambler, because he would run plays people didn't expect. He was the guy who was willing to do the onside kick at the beginning of the third quarter and no one expected it, that kind of thing. He was a guy who would call the trick play occasionally and then go back to mainstream smash mouth football. And so I'm hoping that that's going to transcend into politics. It has in the U.S. Senate. When he basically held up all the general officer and admiral confirmations because the Pentagon was trying to push for abortion policies using federal dollars, there were times when he was the only person who was willing to stand up and say it. But all it took was one, and out of 100 senators, he was the only one who would actually stand in the gap, and he did it.
Well, and I still consider, obviously he's been in the Senate for however many years, but I still consider him an outsider of politics. He hasn't spent his career in politics. He's still got an outsider perspective of, he's led teams and, been a successful coach. So it's like, well, why don't we do it that way? He's not the same old, and he's going to get it done. But real quick before I go to break, I got to say one comment on the YouTube I agree with. It says, RTR, Coach Tuberville, I'm so glad you brought the Saban era in. It was great. So there you go.
Oh, you feel better now? You feel good?
Yeah.
All right, take it to a break, man. We'll take a break right now. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. I got more on this. Who else is running for something? Who else? Well, it's all in, brother. All in. I'll tell you more about it when we get back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right. Hey, I got to tell you guys, I got several text messages I'll be jumping on, but I want to remind y'all that the latest edition of the new Just Right podcast, it's our long form podcast. That's the one where we have detailed discussions in depth with the most interesting people in the world. And we sit down in the new podcast studio here at Rightside and just kind of go at it for, a good while. And anyway, the latest edition came out last night. This is a guy named Conrad Thompson, who is literally, he's a mortgage banker. And then next thing you know, he marries Ric Flair's daughter. And then next thing you know, he's got the platform of being the most prolific podcaster of professional wrestling in the world. And he's even been inducted into the World Wrestling Hall of Fame. So my discussion with Conrad Thompson is both inspiring, it's informative, it's entertaining, and I really think you ought to check it out. It's called the Just Right Podcast with Phil Williams. It's edition number 2, and it is out. I will also say, too, this is very cool. While I'm on the topic of people who are all in, so you may recall that last week's edition of the Just Right Podcast was with former Navy SEAL Jared Hudson, who now fights human traffickers and trains other SEALs and people in military and the police forces. So Jared Hudson called into the show yesterday. And Jared Hudson this morning announced he's running for the U.S. Senate. So there's that. By the way, Jared Hudson is not only somebody who I've interviewed on our podcast, who's been on our show multiple times. He's a friend of the show. He is one of our podcasters. We have a show called The Liberty Minute that is Jared Hudson that comes out roughly every other week. And it's just basically him monologuing for, a good 20 or 30 minutes on topics of the day or topics that he cares deeply about. And it does a great job. And he announced this morning that he is officially throwing his name in the hat to run for the seat being vacated by Tommy Tuberville. So the idea of having a frog man for a U.S. Senator, I can get behind that. We'll see where it goes. And I am prayerfully supportive of his run, and I'm loving the fact that one of our Rightside team members is now in the race for the U.S. Senate. Kind of cool, just to be honest with you. Thomas Mathens is checking in on the text line. It says, Colonel, thanks for having Senator Tuberville on today. Great monologue as usual. Thank you, Thomas. He said, a CO who exhibits hardcore leadership is necessary for the mission. A good XO is invaluable. And I judge that Governor to-be Tuberville will essentially be that kind of CO. And for JP, he says, War dang eagle.
Okay.
Ron from Tuscumbia and Jay from Florence both had questions and messaging they wanted me to give to Tuberville while he was on the phone, and that wasn't the way we were going to handle that interview. So I appreciate y'all chiming in. Maybe the day will come when we set it up in advance to know that people can give us their questions, but that was not for today. So anyway, thank you all for your input. Jerry from Decatur says, excellent monologue, Phil. It says, military preparedness is a big deal to a war machine. Entrenching tools were issued back in my day, and they weren't just for digging foxholes. That's exactly right. It says Deuteronomy 23, 12 through 14. It was given because God walked among the people of Israel and the same among our warriors. Cover it up. Airborne. Jerry, thank you, man. Appreciate you. Airborne. And then Kimball from Harvest says, Phil, as I've been listening, I've had a few thoughts. Not necessarily related to each other. Okay. He says, number one, the Lord hears and answers prayers, especially from his righteous daughters praying for their loved ones. Well, that would be my sweet Charlene. She certainly did. And then number two, he said, I think the Trump administration is doing as great a job, but I think that people are really wanting to start seeing some arrests for wrongdoings, like the January 6th pipe bombs that got swept under the rug. I agree with you. And number three, I look forward to hearing from Tommy Tuberville as a gubernatorial candidate. Thank you, Kimball, for running the gamut there with us, brother. But yes, I agree on all points. All right, listen. So when we get back from this break, we're going to continue this thread of all in. All right, so I'm not sure if you like how much time have I got, JP? Never mind, the music's about to play. I knew it was coming.
Impeccable timing.
Hey, JP, how much time? All right, tell you what, when we get back, I'm going to tell you about the all in thing. Who else is running for what? Who else is not running? Who else can even run? Y'all, it's going to be a crazy time in Alabama politics. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. solid conservative and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2. Hour number 2 on a hump day. We'll get you all the way to go home time on a Friday afternoon. That is the plan. In the meantime, I am in Dipper number 1 of the day. So we just had our conversation there with U.S. Senator, now gubernatorial candidate, Tommy Tuberville.
Governor-elect.
You're going to call him governor-elect already? So basically what you're saying is the slate has been cleaned and he's got the clear path.
Until they have somebody up against them. You know what I mean? I mean, you saw Kyle Whitmire. Apparently, we're in a Russian democracy right now because he's running unopposed.
Yeah. I mean, because, Democrats, they always let people choose the candidate of their choice to run for office. I'm sorry. That doesn't really happen, does it? I'm looking right now up on the CNN screen, and oh my gosh, Doug Jones is on CNN right now. Hallelujah. Just saying, nothing but goodness there.
Almost like he's positioning himself to make a run.
Pray tell, why would that be?
He's ready to be relevant again.
Yeah. I don't know that he ever truly was.
Somewhat relevant again.
So the Democrats right now, the only thing they've got, because they don't have a candidate, is in fact, I'm going to pull it up on my phone here and take a look at this. They posted last night, as Tuberville made his announcement that he was running for governor, the Democrats decided, hey, here's a great idea. We don't have a candidate, but we're going to fight him on non-political issues. Like basically, should he even be allowed to run? That's where we are right now. So the Dems posted this thing on, and I'm going to pull it up real quick and I'll get it for you. They posted this thing on their official Facebook page. It was picked up, I believe, by 1819. And I saw it and I thought, well, that's classic. But I also saw something else in the middle of it. So there's this piece they put out that did it disappear from my? I think it just disappeared.
I got it up on the stream right now.
Do you really?
Yep.
All right, put up the one that I had. Well,
is this the one you're talking about?
Yeah, I think so. Let's see. Yes, the third paragraph down on the statement the Democrats made about whether Tommy Tuberville should be allowed to even run. Well, what do you mean allowed to even run? It has a line in there that says, well, if he doesn't live here, then that opens the door for Democrats as well. You know what that's saying? We don't have anybody in the state of Alabama who can run. So what we're really hoping is we can prove that we're allowed to go outside the state to recruit so we can go get somebody because we don't got nobody. How sad is that?
That is sad.
That is just messed up sad.
What, Kamala Harris going to run against Tommy Tuberville for
bring it on,
Alabama?
I mean, who's going to want to move here and say I'll take that gig?
That's just. But I mean, Tuberville mentioned in our interview that 2019 is when he ran for Senate, and that would be 7 years by the time of 2026. So, yeah. I guess technically when he would take office, it would be 10 years if you count his time in Auburn as well. It's a whole, and I'm sure he'll go to court and I'm sure it'll be, determined upon, but I don't see much of an issue here.
And I'm trying to think if they can do this, but here's what I think should happen. I think that the Tuberville campaign might ought to go ahead and get what's called a declaratory judgment and just go ahead and file their own action and ask the court to declare their rights and see where it is. But then again, here's the other thing. It's the state party that qualifies a candidate. So state code will govern who's allowed to run, but the state party has to qualify. If the state party wants to qualify him, their own attorneys have to justify it. And then you go and get the declaratory judgment and say, my party has qualified me. I've done these things. Here's my proof of life, so to speak. And then ask the judge to go ahead and qualify you. And I realize that what they may not want to do is open Pandora's box on that, but this is going to happen. They're going to do this. And I do believe, with all my heart, I believe that there ain't no way in God's green earth that he would have jumped in this race without doing exactly what he said, which was consulting with, retired judges and lawyers and
doing
others.
His due diligence.
Doing the due diligence, thank you, to make sure that he had the ability to actually run.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, let me step back and say something. What you are about to see may be one of the most epically crazy, wide open, full-fledged, all-in campaign seasons Alabama has seen in an entire generation. I say that because I don't know when we have had it that every statewide office is up for grabs at one time. I mean, right now in this election season, every House and Senate race in our state house is up for re-election anyway. There's that. But then all of the statewide offices, and I'm talking about Secretary of State, Treasurer, Auditor, Lieutenant Governor, Governor, every one of them is now empty or soon to be empty. No incumbent running for reelection. They're all either termed out or retiring. So what that means is you have a plethora of open seats. That usually happens onesies and twosies. It rarely happens all at the same time. And so now what we're going to see is basically it's an all call. It's a complete cattle call. You're going to, if you want to run, now's the time, baby. I'm just saying, if you want to run for a statewide office, there has never been a better time. Pick one. Well, yesterday, Tuberville cleaned the slate on the governor's race. He comes in with name ID and financial backing that is going to be far and away above what anybody else can sustain. So the odds are that no one's going to jump in the race from the Republican side to run against him for the nomination. Doesn't mean he's not going to have a Democrat. He probably will have a Democrat. And in fact, not that I want a Democrat to win, but I'm fine with there being a Democrat in the race. Go ahead and find somebody. That's democracy. You're not going to win, but we'll take it. All that to say, the Tuberville race is probably going to be Tuberville. I can't imagine anybody else having the name ID and the money to do it. But then you got the race for lieutenant governor. In the race for lieutenant governor right now, you've got a slate of people. You got Rick Pate, former ag commissioner. You almost had, we don't now, but you've got Wes Allen, our current Secretary of State. You may have John Wall, who is our current chairman of the Alabama Republican Party. And then I'm hearing several other names on the side. So there may be a huge slate just for lieutenant governor. And then you got Secretary of State's already getting gamey. And then you got offices like auditor and other. I'm telling you, it's going to be, it's going to be wide open. And oh, by the way, there is now an open U.S. Senate seat. Never have I seen this much open seat running as I'm seeing right now. Now, okay, so I started to mention a minute ago, somebody who is not going to be running, and some of y'all know her, Twinkle Cavanaugh. Twinkle Cavanaugh. I know Twinkle Cavanaugh personally. She was a friend of my dad's too. She's a sharp lady. She's a good friend. She's somebody who I respect and I like. She's been the president of what's known as the Alabama Public Service Commission for a number of years. She's been in state politics in and around it for years. And being at the PSC, she's been somebody who has dealt with the regulatory issues regarding utilities and all that kind of stuff. She was touted as someone who's going to run for lieutenant governor. But Twinkle Cavanaugh, as of yesterday, according to Yellowhammer News, is out of the running because she has just been picked up by the Trump administration to be what's her title now? It'll be the Alabama State Director for Rural Development for the Department of Agriculture. So basically what she's going to be doing is helping farmers and rural Alabamians get the things they need to increase their capabilities at the local level. That's cool. That also means Twinkle Cavanaugh, who is a name in politics, is now out of the running for these races. Okay, so who else is in? Well, let's talk about U.S. Senate. Because right now, one of our podcasters I mentioned a minute ago is Jared Hudson, former Navy SEAL, fights human trafficking, got an incredible story. He's been with us now for about a year. And he's also, oh, by the way, just done a huge, if you want to know more about Jared Hudson, just go to our podcast, Just Right Podcast, that we just put out last week. And you can go ahead and get an hour and a half of who this guy is, what he stands for, and what he's like. And you'll be impressed. Other people, though, that are looking at that race for U.S. Senate, piece here that I've got from 1819 News. I hold it in my calloused former paratrooper hands. U.S. Representative Barry Moore. So Barry Moore is one of the most conservative members of the Congress. He hails from the Wiregrass region of Alabama. He has been a member of the Freedom Caucus for a number of years. And Barry Moore is a good dude. And Barry Moore is considering, he says, my family and I are praying, asking the Lord to guide us in this direction. We are seeking his guidance as we listen to the people of Alabama, considering how to best serve our great state. And I'm honored to be a part of this conversation. All right, those are very carefully worded phrases that says, I'm really thinking about running for U.S. Senate. Now, the wild card, the dark horse, the person who I was wondering about, I think is going to be out. And that's Bruce Pearl. You and I talked about this yesterday.
We did.
Bruce Pearl. Is Bruce Pearl going to run for U.S. Senate? I'm hearing he can't. I won't say why. I'm just telling you right now, I had an inside conversation with somebody who is, let's say, in the know, and they flat out said, no, he can't. There are some reasons why he can't. And I don't mean like he wouldn't win. I mean like he can't run, and it would be like a qualifying issue or something like that that would keep him from being able to get on the ballot for whatever reason. Now, I don't know if it's a residency issue, if it's something that he's been supportive of in the past, whatever the case may be. Bruce Pearl, I don't think is going to be in the mix, although that was an exciting discussion.
It's a fun conversation.
It's a fun conversation.
Yeah.
War Eagle. All right. So anyway, but Tuberville, reading between the lines here, that article you pointed out yesterday from On3, which is a sports media news site. Tuberville himself said he would encourage Pearl to stay on the plains. Okay, so that's kind of like, little background here. I'm thinking he ought to stay down there. Just, he said he's done a great job leading the men's basketball program to the Final Four. And then he even said, then the compensation would be a little bit different. I'm sure that's true too. It also points out, though, Bruce Pearl did sign a contract extension down at Auburn back in 2022 that it goes through 2030 at $6.2 million a year. So yes, that would be quite the, income diversion, if you will.
Just a little bit. And also he got a big announcement. Todd Pettiford's coming back to Auburn this year, and he put out a tweet about that. So although eventually I do think he will be a politician when he's done, maybe not now. Maybe not yet.
Maybe not now.
But
how old is Bruce Pearl?
That's a good question. I do not know.
I think one of the speculations, speaking of age, while you're looking that up, is that whether Tuberville would run for 2 terms.
Bruce Pearl is 65.
He's 65? It's young.
Mm-hmm.
Young, I tell you. But by the time his contract runs out in 2030, he would be 70.
70, yeah.
And then the other one that we have to watch for in terms of all in is our Attorney General, Steve Marshall, who's been an amazing Attorney General, in my opinion. As an Attorney General, he has been conservative. He has been a warfighter. He's been on this show multiple times, sat right here in the studio with us just a few months ago. And we're watching right now to see what Attorney General Steve Marshall is going to do. There is strong indications that he was considering running for governor, but I think that that's been kind of changed for him by Tuberville. But the other question is whether he would run for the U.S. Senate. Right now, the only candidate that I'm aware of, the only candidate in the race is Jared Hudson. I suspect there'll be more. And I say that in part because anyone who's ever thought about running for the U.S. Senate, you don't ignore the fact that an open seat is sitting in front of you. An open seat means you don't have the power of the incumbency weighing against you. Now, I'm hearing that there's some folks who are really solidly backing Jared Hudson. I imagine, though, that having been the former chairman of the Republican Attorneys General Association nationwide and the things that he's done in statewide races, I think that AG Steve Marshall would be a viable candidate. Absolutely. He could get in that race and be a top tier name. Lots more to come, you guys. But I'm just telling you, stand by, brace yourselves. Just go ahead and hold on, because it's about to be politics like you've never seen in the state of Alabama. But I'm excited about it because you know why? On the Republican side, the bench is actually pretty deep. Democrats, I don't know who they're going to field for anything. We'll wait and watch and see. Take me to a break, JP. We'll take that break. We'll come right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right. Got several texts and comments on the social media. So I will say this, though. I'll pick your sound effect for this one I'm about to announce. But it just literally in the last, 45 seconds or so. What time is it? Yep. Okay, 5 minutes. The last 5 minutes, the Tuberville campaign just posted on social media that they just set an all-time Alabama record and raised over $2 million on the first day. Wow. Okay. That's heavyweight, and that's going to make it nigh unto impossible for other people to want to jump in this race unless they're bringing money with them. I mean, you're not going to. So here's the thing: the easiest way to raise money in politics is to have either A, the clean race that you see no true opposition getting in your way, or B, you're already raising money and people realize that others are supporting you and therefore they want to get on board too. Those are the two factors that often get considered. And truthfully, the fact that he raised over $2 million in the first day is going to make anybody else who's thinking about this think twice, because they don't know that they can keep up with that level of fundraising. He may have just paid for the race on day one, because if he doesn't get any meaningful competition in the primary, there's no reason to spend that money.
Nope.
He's just going to harbor it until he sees whether he has a Democrat. And then if he doesn't need it, then he just runs some great campaign ads and goes all the way to the general election.
Run up the score.
Yeah. Run up the score, baby. John from Huntsville. Phil, don't you think that Doug Jones is probably going to run for governor on the Democrat ticket and win the Democratic primary, and then Tommy Tuberville will crush him in the general election? So, John, that's right now, that's the only candidate I can see them bringing in. I don't think Terry Sewell will leave the House. I don't think she could win if she did. And I think she knows that. And I can't think of anybody else right now as a Democrat in the state of Alabama who has made such a name for them. I mean, I'm trying to think of who's even in the state house right now. And there's just not a crew. Doug Jones is the most viable person they've got. Parker Griffin, the party switcher from Huntsville, who went Democrat, Republican, Democrat. He ain't going to do it. Shamari Figures, he's brand new in the political scene for the Democrats. He ain't going to do it. So no, I don't think so. I think Doug Jones may be their only possibility, John. There's that. David at Bucky says, Phil, listen to your podcast with Conrad Thompson. Very entertaining. But when you mentioned wrestler Tojo Yamamoto, yeah, he said, fond memories of days gone by hit me as a teenager as I headed up Montesano on Saturday to Channel 19 studios to be part of the Sadly Wrestling Show. How about that? He said, it was a lot of fun. Things sure have changed since then. Yes, they have. Yes, they have. Thank you, David. Appreciate you. What'd you have on social media?
Oh, well, John Paul from Huntsville on YouTube.
Again,
he
okay.
says Bruce Pearl and Nick Saban are going to battle it out for the Alabama Senate, and Bruce Pearl would crush Nick Saban. That's what he says.
Bruce Pearl would crush Nick Saban. How about that?
I mean, he said it. Doesn't mean it's true.
How do you feel about that, JB? All right, listen. We got more. We're coming right back. How about this? There are things we want to know. Like, whose cocaine was that in the White House? Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Man, covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This one, I'm talking about this show goes from like Huntsville all the way to Chattanooga. I'm talking about Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I mean, down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn. Straight across the border from there to what we now get to call once again Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio. That's not even including how many of y'all live stream the show with us every single day online, or for that matter, pick it up later in podcast form. We appreciate you. This audience is the reason why we do what we do. Hey, let me just go ahead and say, don't forget, coming up top of the hour, we switch gears and go to the Grand Council with my brethren, Jeff Poore and Dale Jackson. We'll have some good times there. And then, don't forget also that Rightside Radio is a production of Rightside Media, the parent company. And Rightside Media does all kinds of stuff. We've got written work, we've got video podcasting, and we've got a brand new podcast that just came out with its second edition last night. And this is called the Just Right Podcast with me, Phil Williams. I'm the host, and it's a deep dive conversation with literally some of the most interesting people in the world. I just think they're fascinating. And a lot of them are like close by and you never knew it. So round two of the Just Right podcast with Phil Williams came out last night. You can find it at our website, rightside.media.org, or on our YouTube page. Go check it out. And by the way, do me this favor. As a growing company, as a growing media company, the only way we're really able to grow our presence is for you guys to either hit like or subscribe or follow on whatever platform we happen to be on. And I would love for y'all to do that. It would mean the world to us if you would. And every time we've asked, a bunch of y'all go in there and click subscribe or whatever on YouTube. That mean a world of good to us. So check it out and then hit those buttons. All right. So this next dipper I've got, I'm calling it We Want to Know. Yeah, we want to know. We want to know. We want to know some things that happened that just like stopped being talked about. Like, I don't know, who in the God's name left a bag of cocaine in the White House, and then you never heard about it again, did you? Reckon why that would be? Well, it was the Biden administration that did not believe in accountability. We all know that. No one was ever held accountable for anything in the Biden administration. I mean, it was galling to watch people literally fail up. It didn't matter what you did. There were no consequences. Meritocracy was out the window. It was all about DEI and about holding the fort. And they also knew, by the way, that I think this is a thing, and JP, you chime in if you want to, but I think this is a thing, that what we're finding out more and more now was the true and intentional cover-up of Biden's physical and mental condition. Nobody wanted to make anybody angry with accountability in the White House because you never knew who was going to turn on you. And everybody had secrets. Everybody had secrets. And so they just rocked on and covered things up. Anyway, my thoughts.
I would agree with that. And it's instability and chaos. What does it reap? More instability and chaos, which is kind of what we saw within 4 years, not only here, but on the global stage. So I think what was going on behind the scenes manifested itself outwards, unfortunately.
I would concur. One of those things that never heard about again, right, was what happened with the leak of the Roe v. Wade decision. You remember this? So it was one of those most disappointing things. In fact, I've got a piece here by Jonathan Turley. Jonathan Turley, George Washington University law professor, a longtime conservative pundit. He said, and I think he's right. He said, in a city that floats on leaks, the court was an island of integrity. And more has been lost at the court than just confidentiality. There is a loss of confidence, even of innocence, at an institution that once aspired to be something more than a source for the New York Times. You see, we all know, and I don't appreciate the fact that there are leaks that happen in politics, but the court is different. Because if you leak a judicial decision ahead of time, you can actually wind up damaging the ability of the court to operate. You have in the legal world, you have things like, attorney-client privilege, meaning those conversations don't get let out. You have confidential records and protective orders, and you have things that are put in place, and the judicial system has got to operate with integrity, because the day you lose integrity, you lose the ability for the people to trust that the decisions coming out of the court have any meaning. Well, Roe v. Wade, one of the most egregious decisions ever rendered, was basically soon to be overturned. Everybody could feel like it might happen, but then somebody leaked it from the Supreme Court. That never happens. There have been occasional dribbles of things out of the Supreme Court decision-making process, but never has there been a leak of the magnitude of what happened with this. And you never heard who was responsible, did you? Well, there have been rumors now for months that there were a couple of culprits who were the ones that the U.S. Marshals were looking at, and that's who had the investigative action on this, the U.S. Marshals. But we do know the U.S. Marshals allegedly interviewed and took actual sworn testimony from over 100 possible suspects. They all signed sworn statements, meaning they're on the record. That means there's also a file. The FBI has now announced under Dan Bongino and Kash Patel that they are reopening the investigation. Really? Yes, they are. And under 18 U.S.C. Section 1001, this could carry up to a 5-year jail sentence. I think not only do we need to know, we want to know, we deserve to know. And so that one's being investigated right now. There, we want to know that one. Here's another one that I want to know more about. I saw this yesterday. It came out, I think, Friday afternoon, but I just saw it for the first time. Drew Berquist has this. He says there are newly declassified documents released last Friday by Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence. And get this, they show that federal agencies under Biden-Harris labeled Americans who opposed the COVID-19 vaccine as domestic violent extremists. Can you imagine? All it took for you to be labeled as a domestic violent extremist is the idea that you didn't like the vaccine. And she released documents that say that.
Which, by the way, a lot of what they were saying then has been proved to be correct. But who cares about the truth, by the way? The people that they labeled as domestic terrorists, what they said then is now coming out to light to be true the whole time.
Oh, yeah. Not that they were violent, but you're saying what the people who were resisting were saying was true. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The documents were first obtained by the public and by Catherine Herridge reports reveal the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, and the National Counterterrorism Center all jointly produced an intel assessment labeled, it was called DVEs and Foreign Analogs May React Violently to the COVID-19 Mitigation Mandates. They basically said in this report that the world should be on edge because there were domestic violent extremists in America, and the grounds for which they could receive that label was they did not like the COVID vaccines. Unbelievable. You talk about the weaponization of government. You talk about coming after you for having freedom of speech. I want to know more. I want to know who actually signed off on that. And did they then begin to take action? Was there anybody who saw their business audited? Was there anybody who saw their rights infringed upon? Was there anybody who had someone knock on their door in the dark of night and want to talk to them about their social media postings? I want to know. And so, yeah, I think we deserve to know the things we're finding out right now. My gosh. I mean, the Biden administration was just, it was a clown car. It was a clown car filled up, and it was doing things that were designed literally to encroach upon civil liberties, and they could care less. How about this one? Townhall.com has a piece that says, oh, by the way, one of the things they're reopening the investigation on, is where'd that cocaine come from in the White House? Anybody who's ever worked in a SCIF or in a secure facility, here's the deal. Like when I worked in a SCIF in the basement of the Pentagon, once I finally worked my way down the stairs and through the various checkpoints and all the things I had to do to get down there, because it was a 10-minute walk from the front door of the Pentagon just to get to where I worked. But once I got down in there, then I still had to lock my phone. And if you've ever been to like the post office and there's little boxes, you know, where everybody gets their mail, picture that, lock boxes. You put your phone in one of them, lock it, you keep the key, come back, get your phone later. Apparently, somebody locked their phone and their baggie of Coke in one of those boxes, and they forgot to get the Coke out later. And that was right outside the White House Situation Room. So in the Situation Room where people go in to find out about the, you know, the most urgent matters before the National Security Council, someone decided, before I walk in the door, I guess I better lock my cocaine in the box out here. The fact that somebody had cocaine in the White House and got all the way to the Situation Room with it is alone a story. The fact that it was left behind is the second story. The third story is the fact that the investigation came up with nothing, like it just went away. Well, not no mo, my friends. Because you know why? Because we want to know. We want to know exactly what happened. Whose bag of cocaine was that? Well, the FBI, under Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, have now reopened that investigation. It's a matter of national security, and they intend to get to the bottom of it. And I am very happy about that. One more they're investigating on that I think just kind of went away, and I'm wondering why. Remember the January 6th events? Oh, geez. Yeah. Insurrection. Okay. But do you remember, though, that there were pipe bombs left outside of the DNC headquarters and maybe the RNC? I've forgotten. Pipe bombs in D.C. Like, who left explosive devices? Who did that? You're talking about Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. One of the cities that has probably the most number of security cameras per block than any other city in America. And nobody knows who just like dropped off a pipe bomb at the front door. It just went away. No investigation, no report that we could see, no transparency whatsoever. Not no mo. You know why? Because we want to know what happened. And so does Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. So they have reopened that investigation. I mean, first of all, I'm loving where this is going. What I also want to see, though, are some arrests. I really do. I want to see somebody do the perp walk for leaking the Roe v. Wade decision. I want to see somebody literally called on the carpet for leaving their baggie of white powder in the lot box outside the White House Situation Room. I want to know who was brash enough to leave a pipe bomb on the streets of our nation's capital, and ain't nobody said nothing ever since. And then here's the other thing I want to know. Who ran the freaking auto pen? Who had access to the auto pen? Because what that we're looking at right now, Red State has an article that came out yesterday. And it talks about the fact that Biden staffers had plans for how they were going to try and run the country. The staffers run the country if Biden somehow got reelected. How they were going to basically make the decisions and keep things moving, because it was far more important that Trump not get elected than it was to have somebody who was not vegetative sitting in the Oval Office. They would much rather have had Weekend at Bernie's in the White House than to have had Trump in the decision-making processes. And so they were willing to do anything. And somewhere in the midst of all that, they became so bold, so emboldened, that they ran amok with the freaking auto pen. And the questions are now being asked and the investigations are now being kindled as to whether or not the auto pen was not only abused, but whether the president even knew it was happening, to include a vast, vast, vast number of pardons and commutations of prison sentences, major policy decisions on things related to energy. You had economic policy decisions. You had foreign policy decisions, all of which required a signature of the man who was allegedly elected to run our country. And yet we're learning now the auto pen signed 90% of the executive orders in the Biden administration. And we have no way of knowing who had true access to that auto pen. Who did that? And did they even have authority to do that? Did Biden even know it was happening? We want to know. Yeah, we do. You know why? Because it's our country. And because the effort of the left to step on civil liberties was galling in its scope. And we deserve to know, because this is the greatest country on the face of the earth, and we have to restore trust and value to the actual Oval Office. We have to restore the ability of the world to look at it as an unvarnished, capable, mission-ready organization, not run by junior staffers with neat ideas and auto pens, not leaving their baggies of cocaine outside the Situation Room while they talk about what they're going to do after work that afternoon. We need people that are game on, and the world needs to see it. And the only way we can prevent that from ever happening again is to have some accountability. So yeah, we want to know. There's that, Dipper. All right, we'll take a break right now. We'll come right back. I'll get some text messages, catch up on your messaging. Text me, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. And then coming up top of the hour, we switch over to the Grand Council with Jeff Poore and Dale Jackson and little old me, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just pulling pins on truth grenades. There you go. Several text messages to catch up on. Dave from Capshaw, Alabama. He says, you think Doug Jones more likely to run for debate?
I think he meant to say run for Senate.
I think Senate, yeah. I think your spell check grabbed hold of you and did what it wanted to do, Dave. But I think he says Doug Jones may more likely to run for Senate than governor. Well, I think anybody right now wants to run for anything else except for governor, with Tuberville raising $2 million in the first day. But yeah, I think that's more likely. He's been a U.S. senator. He can speak to the job. I think that he would like to have his old job back. He only held it for 2 years, and then basically he had an asterisk by his name to begin with. If it had not been for the press getting its early run at the Brett Kavanaugh scandals by having Roy Moore, he would never have been in office. Just never.
By the way, how many points did Tuberville beat Doug Jones by?
By a whole lot. Yeah, you can look it up and see.
Yes,
you can. All you do is look up Tommy Tuberville, and you'll look at Ballotopedia. There's a website called Ballotopedia. It'll show you his elections, and you can go back and look and see what the percentages were.
So over 20 points is what I'm saying.
By over 20 points.
Yes. So Tuberville got 60.1% of the vote, and Doug Jones got 39.7% of the vote.
Holy cow!
Yeah, that's
a shellacking.
That encourages you to what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Exactly.
I mean, if he wants to do it, I bet he beat him by more this time.
For governor, you say?
Yeah, I bet Tuberville would beat him by 25 points this time.
I think easily.
At
At least. Thomas Mathis says, hey, JP, I think Coach Saban, another genuine leader, focused on the mission, able to surround himself with great exos, would be a formidable candidate for any office to which he might aspire.
I don't want Coach Saban to run for any office. I don't want him to get him. Man, it wouldn't like take away his coaching legacy, but why would you do? Why would you jump into that world of politics?
That's a great point. Carl from Decatur checking in. He thinks, okay, so there's a name, Bud Kramer. He says he thinks Bud Kramer would be a good choice for Democrat governor. Would you look up Bud Kramer, Alabama? Tell me how old he is. But Bud Kramer, who hasn't, by the way, been in office in a long time. Bud Kramer would be a good choice for Democrat governor. He says he could beat Tuberville. He was wildly popular in North Alabama. He's got to run the whole state, though, Bud.
He's 77.
He's 77. He ain't running. Not going to happen. But anyway, Carl, appreciate the input. And that is a name on the Democrat side that still holds some respect, but I don't think it's going to happen. Brian from Harvest says, whoever it was, I think they just wanted to be awake and know what the situations were in the Situation Room. Oh, that was keeping them awake. Is that the way it works? And then Julie from Hillsborough says the Autopin scandal proves they even considered Kamala Harris an unacceptable alternative to Sleepy Joe. Yes, it does. Coming right back, Grand Counsel Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. conservative and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on Hump Day. You know the deal. Beginning of the show on Wednesdays, we play the camel. Coming up at the top of the or the beginning of the third hour, yep, then we go to the thing called the Grand Council. So I bring in two of my brethren in talk radio every week on Wednesdays, and I'll remind you guys all that the Grand Council every Wednesday is brought to you by DeKalb MD. DeKalb MD, Healthcare Simplified, and I'll tell you more about them in just a minute. Let me call the roll. From down south yonder in Mobile, FM Talk 1065, host of the Jeff Poor Show. Oh, by the way, he's the editor-in-chief for 1819 News. Oh, by the way, he's also doing stuff with Breitbart and Lanyap and a bunch of other stuff he's done over time. Jeff Poor, are you there?
I am present.
You are indeed, and we're glad of it. All right, looking northward to the northern reaches of our state from WVNN, that's 770 AM 92.5 FM, Cumulus broadcasting out of Huntsville, host of the Dale Jackson Show in the mornings. Oh, by the way, does a bunch of other stuff, allegedly with TV, and writes stuff for Yellowhammer. Hey, Dale Jackson, are you there? Was that like a cheesy little hua? Are you just stand at ease? All right.
Yeah, I'm having a rough couple of days. Cut me some slack. I'm being dramatic.
Like sleep is highly overrated. All right, play it.
Assemble the Grand Council.
Yeah. All right. Well, since Dale Jackson's feeling bad for himself, I'm going to go ahead and let him go first. Dale Jackson, what question do you have for the crew?
Oh, thank you very much. Now that Governor-elect Coach Senator Tommy Tuberville has declared that he's taking the governor's mansion, and he'll let us swim in his Alabama-shaped swimming pool at some point in time, I'm sure. Now that that's happened, can you guys think of 3 Democrats, including one female, that could possibly even challenge him? Do they exist? Can anyone think of who these players are?
Wait, so you're trying? So you give us some pretty rough criteria there. We got to have 3. They got to be Democrats, and one's got to be a female. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, legitimate candidates. 3 of them. One of them has to be female.
Oh, and now they have to be legitimate. Okay, I mean anybody can throw their name on a. Okay, so all right. So if I have to go that route, I'm going to say if I had to pick in that narrow confine, I'm going to say the only people I can think of like that would be Doug Jones, Randall Woodfin, Terry Sewell, maybe Tabitha Eisner, but she's such a clown that I don't think that could ever work. Jeff, what do you think, man?
I'll say like a Wandel and Gavan would be interesting.
Wandel and Gavan. Wow.
Stephen Reed. There's some Democrats out there. Nobody, I mean, it's a silly discussion because no one's going to get more than 25% against Tommy Tuberville. No, maybe more. The left really, really hates him, but it's 33% is probably the ceiling for a Democrat challenger.
We were just looking a while ago in the election against Doug Jones. It was a 21 point spread with Doug Jones only getting 39% of the overall vote. That was significant shellacking. And he technically had 2 years of incumbency when he ran. All right. So Dale, what do you think, man? Do we leave any names off the list of your imaginary list of candidates?
Well, I mean, some people want Doug Jones. I keep mentioning him. I just don't know why
he's
compelling. Well, I mean, but do they even? I mean, that doesn't really say a lot because all he was not Roy Moore. I mean, that's basically what it was. And so, as for the females, the reason I point this out, isn't it amazing? The party of women do not have one dominant female that they can point to that is a legitimate person. I mean, I would have gone with Subel Cobb, but remember, she's a no good, dirty quitter. So I just don't know if she's really a player in any of this as well.
Never trust a hyphenated name. I never trust a hyphenated name. But Subel Cobb, I've forgotten about her, but she's been so out of the picture for a while. I can't imagine her ever stepping back in and making some waves. I think the only one they've got is either Terry Sewell or Tabitha Eisner. I can't think of anybody else. And like I said, Tabitha Eisner is kind of like a parody of herself now when you see her on social media. But we'll see where it goes. Next question.
Was she ever something that wasn't ridiculous? I don't know that.
I don't know. Isn't there something about her being a beauty queen at one point in the past or something like that?
No, you're thinking of Mallory Hagan.
Oh, that's right. Mallory Hagan. That's right. I'm sorry.
They all look alike, don't they?
I don't know how you got that. Okay, yeah. All right, let me ask you this. Speaking in this same vein, so we can all expect there to be some potential endorsements. Tommy Tuberville for governor. I could see him easily receiving a Trump endorsement sometime in the very near future. That being said, what's the next best thing? So if you're looking for endorsements and you get one from Donald Trump, that's the gold standard right now on the Republican side. Who's next? What's the next endorsement you would hope to get? Dale, you first.
Yaffee.
Oh, well now.
No, the correct. It's Katie Britt.
Yeah,
Katie Britt is the next one. She is as much as social media and the liberal media will tell you that she's the worst. I don't think that the people of the state of Alabama see her that way. I think that they find her to be rather impressive, and I think they generally like her. And I think that she's done a decent job, and I think she's a good get on an endorsement.
I would tend to agree. That's exactly who I was going to say next. Jeff, what do you think, man? Who's the next endorsement after Donald Trump that any Republican candidate should want?
Well, I mean, it's a state constitutional office enough where the U.S. Senate race that we haven't talked about that's wide open. I would say Katie Britt, but you know, I really hate saying this, but maybe it's Kay Ivey.
Oh, really? Now Kay knows there's a race, right? I mean, that's happening. This is the thing.
Probably not, and that's sad. You're probably right.
I you know what? They will issue a statement at some point. I feel certain, but I don't know. I don't see Kay out there campaigning. I mean, you watch her go to the Republican dinners now, and they actually gave her an award last year, and she walked up on stage, took it, and walked off without saying a single word. And so I don't see her doing much campaigning, but if she issues an endorsement, it'll be something her staff writes for her and puts out on social media, I guess. All right. Wow.
Well, I'd like to point out that like a week and a half ago, she showed up at an event before it even started, was already sitting and seated, and then was out of there relatively quickly. So she didn't even make like a governor's entrance or anything. I was
at one in DC where she did that. She came in late. She actually walked in the room. She walked past everybody without saying a word. She went up on stage, thanked everybody for coming, and came back down and left.
Wow.
I don't get it. Jeff, next question. What do you got?
So I went to the Tuberville announcement yesterday. Only one lawmaker there.
I saw that.
A little surprised. I'm really surprised by that. Now they've been slowly coming here. Stadhagen earlier today. I know yesterday Ernie Yarborough and Jamie Keel immediately got on the Tuberville bandwagon. Why is it so slow here for these guys to get on board? Because no one's going to beat Tommy Tuberville. He's going to be the next governor. Dale's already called him governor-elect. If it were Will Ainsworth, they all would have been there. I think this is an omen. I don't know for what lies ahead in 2027.
I don't know. I mean, it's a great point. I can speculate, and I did see the pictures, and I was scanning the crowd trying to see faces, and you're right. I only saw one lawmaker, and I find myself questioning that as well. Especially the ones who lived local enough to where they could have just driven over if they wanted to. But I think a couple things I could speculate on, and that's all it is speculation. He's been talking about coming in and shaking things up, and they don't want to get shook. Or it could be that they're scared of the fact that Kyle Whitmire is writing nasty things about whether or not he actually lives in the state, and they're scared of Kyle Whitmire.
He doesn't live in the state. What's he talking about?
Well, you listen. Kyle Whitmire said it. It's got to be true. But there are guys down there who have never had a mean thing said about them because they've never done a thing requiring a mean thing to be said, and they want to keep it that way, and so they might be avoiding it. And then the other is, I will say this, just in their defense, maybe it was largely like an invitation only kind of event. Media could be there, some, but everybody else, it was not like a.
Yeah, I mean, it was a secret. They didn't advertise it.
Yeah,
just wasn't a very well kept secret.
Yeah, I mean, you knew it was there. I knew it was going on before it happened, and I feel certain that Dale Jackson knew. But the reality is,
when did this happen?
Hey, Dale, there was a party and you weren't invited, just so you know.
Oh, okay. Impossible.
All right, good.
Well, let me
go ahead. Yeah.
Let me just real quick and add to my own question here, though, that could it be this senator, and you were in the legislature? They're waiting on Tuberville to call them and ask for it. They're not going to just do it blindly. I mean, you gotta go build the relationship, and they're not going to just come to him.
Only the ones that are true political animals would ever do that, because this is one of those cases where if you can get in to see Donald Trump, you just do. You know, if you can get to Mar-a-Lago, you just do. And that's the case with this one. This is going to be the race where he's already cleaned the slate. By the way, I don't know if you saw the announcement. He just announced a little while ago, about an hour ago, he raised $2 million in day one for his race. So, I mean, it basically, folks, either get on board or you're going to be like left in the dust. And so why anybody would wait right now is a political calculus.
Because they have it. They're going to show his property deed for Florida. They're going to get him.
Yeah, and they're going to get Trump too while they're at
Yeah.
it. Because, you know, that works really well. That's all the Democrats have. We got to take a break. We're taking a break right now. Round one, Grand Council, Jeff Poor, Dale Jackson, and little old me, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. All right, so we're back to round two with the Grand Council, brought to you by DeKalb MD. DeKalb MD, Healthcare Simplified. And I'll tell you more about them here in just a minute. Round two, going to first question, Dale Jackson, who's been spending days trying to fix his broken down radio station. He finally got it up and running. What do you got for us, man?
Okay, so I think that it's interesting. Rasmussen has a poll out. It's being touted as the first time ever that over 50% of the people polled have said the country is moving in the right direction. CNN has a similar poll out. They have it at 39%. Is this really a big win for him? And what's the reason?
Jeff, you weigh in first, man.
Rasmussen kind of Republican leaning. I don't know what the sample looks like. Likely voters, adults, then you have registered voters. All that's in the eye of the sample. I think it's trending in a good place, though. I think it's trending better now that Biden's not president. So I would say that about this, that I think that it's at least trending in a good direction. I don't know if the actual raw numbers are really a good indicator, though.
I would add to that I think what you're seeing too is the fact that you've got results. I mean, you've got the border numbers are great. You got the economy trending in the right direction. You've got action on the world stage, but then you've also got the fact that the Democrats are eating their own right now. And when you've got the press coming out with books that expose what we already knew was happening, but they're now exposing it, and you've got people running around trying to get their own story out, and the cover-ups are prolific. And you've got new investigations into who left the cocaine bag in the White House and everything else. I think what's happening is it's not just the results. It's also the deep impression of what we are compared to the last 4 years. That's my thought. And, I agree with the fact that raw data has to be examined, but in a sense, though, I think that it's explainable in two different directions. What are you thinking, though, Dale?
No, I think you're right. I think there's something to be said for the momentum. We got all these trade deals that are either on the hook or whatever, pausing tariffs again. We're doing that. China, UK, all this, like you said, world stage seems to be calming down a bit. I mean, we killed the head of Hamas here recently. That was obviously after this happened. Up until, I guess, yesterday, Russia and Ukraine, at least they seem to be moving in the right direction, even though it's like gobble up as much land as you can beforehand. It seems what Putin is doing. But it just seems like things may be calming down a little bit on that scale. So I think people are maybe optimistic. Gas prices down, egg prices down, that kind of stuff.
Eggs. We can afford eggs again. All right, so that's good. No, I agree. All right, next question. Let me go back to political action that affects our state, but it really is going to affect us in a big way outside of our state. So right now, the only candidate in the U.S. Senate race that I'm aware of, unless you guys have heard another, is Jared Hudson, former Navy SEAL. He's actually a podcaster with us here at Rightside. But Jared Hudson declared this morning that he is out there. His race has begun. He's running for the open seat for the U.S. Senate. Still got strong rumors about Barry Moore. Still got strong rumors about Attorney General Steve Marshall. Who else are you hearing? What's that race going to look like? Jeff, you first.
I think the Marshall announcement comes tomorrow. I also, there's been some buzz about Dale Strong. I've heard different things though. Yes, no. And then obviously you mentioned Barry Moore and Jared Hudson. So I don't think it'll be all of those, but I think it could be at least two of those.
So you think Marshall's going to be tomorrow? You've already heard the inside track on that, huh?
Yeah, Marshall should be tomorrow, I believe.
Where's it going to be, Jeff? Where are you going to be at when this is going down?
Can we put a low jack?
No, I'm not. I don't think it's going to be a big rollout, but I do think tomorrow will be the day.
So what I'm hearing is we find a friend on your phone, and then we always know where the announcements will be. That's what's going to happen.
I'm not that good.
Well, so Dale, you got anything to add to that? Who else is going to be in the race?
Yeah, I mean, isn't there a guy whose name escapes me right now? Excuse me, Morgan Murphy. He's a White House staffer. Player. I don't know what this is. I got this message the other day, and I was like, I don't know who this is really.
Is that the dude who was having gay sex in one of the chambers?
No, Senator. That's not. You need to be careful here. No, this guy worked for Coach. In his office, and then he went to go. I think America First. Yeah, Not the same guy. No, not at all. He's just kind of a staffer, like a Capitol Hill guy.
Okay, he's not going to run. Not going to happen. Jeff, last question. We got less than a minute. What do you got?
I just finished Jake Tapper book. Will we ever see a Kay Ivey book in that same vein?
Ugh. Not as long as it's a fully red state where people don't really want the truth to get out. I don't think so. I don't think we will. Dale,
What's the truth? Like, what's the big dirt of the Ivy administration? She's old. I mean, what is it? We already know she wore blackface. But what else?
Well, you know, she's got her inner circle that protects her. She doesn't do any media. They probably
that book
have
sounds
to really,
boring.
really, like.
no, it sounds
Wouldn't you like to know what's going on in the state?
I would absolutely. I literally think that there is someone's going to come out and say something, but it's never going to be the book. I think it's going to wind up being that Liz and her husband ran the office and they kept people wrapped up pretty tight. Anyway, that's it. We're done. All right. And now we know that it was not the staffer who was doing bad things in the White House who's going to run for U.S. Senate in Alabama. All right, guys. Appreciate both of you. Jeff Poor, Dale Jackson, and just me, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Man, covering down on some major ground across the southeast US of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This show covers like from Huntsville on over to Chattanooga, from Tuscaloosa on over to Gadsden, all the way down to that lovely little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border from there to what we now call once again Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in too, just for good measure. And that, by the way, is just our radio audience. Then there's all y'all that listen every day live online for our live streaming on all the different social media platforms, website, and everything else. And then, of course, there's you guys who listen to us on the podcast. And thank you very much for that. Hitting 300,000 downloads-ish on the podcast download of the show. So, wow, just love this audience. Thank you all very much. Hey, by the way, I got to remind you guys, the sponsor of the weekly event we call the Grand Council on Wednesdays is DeKalb MD. That's DeKalb, as in DeKalb County, DEKALB. DeKalb MD likes to call itself Healthcare Simplified. And it's very cool. Listen to how this works. So DeKalb MD is a direct primary caregiver with a network of clinics that are located in places like Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. 2 of their locations are in Chattanooga. So all of our Chattanooga right side ruffians, DeKalb MD, 2 locations in your area, and they are not going to operate the way that normal doctors do. They operate on a monthly membership. What? Yes, it's like being a gym membership. You pay $75 a month for what's known as concierge healthcare, and you get basically like same day or next day scheduling, no wait times, longer visits with your provider, after hours access, no additional cost for that. You get a direct phone number to call or text your provider. And oh, by the way, they'll even mail your medications to your house. It's a membership. It's concierge healthcare. It's for $75 a month. How good is that? DeKalb MD, they work with you instead of your insurance. So yes, DeKalb MD, it's primary healthcare with you in mind. And I want to tell you, check them out, please. DeKalbMD.com. That's www.dekabmd.com. 2 locations in Chattanooga, all over the area. Check them out. Schedule an appointment online, and tell them, if you would, please, that you heard about it on Right Side Radio. I gotta remind you guys too, a shameless plug. Shameless. I am shameless in this plug. We just launched a brand spanking new podcast that is out as of last week. The very first edition was with Jared Hudson, who is now running for U.S. Senate. And by the way, that was interesting. The fact that we recorded that, about a month ago. So
it was more than that, like 2 months ago or so.
Has it been that long?
Yeah.
Okay. It's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we recorded, that was our very first one in the new podcast studio. We saved it until we were ready to get a few of them in the can to let them out, all at one time. But Jared Hudson, let's just say that I might have known he was going to run for the U.S. Senate for a little while, but we recorded this podcast way before I knew it. So Jared is a former Navy SEAL who now fights human trafficking, who is literally loves the Lord, has amazing views and worldviews that I think you'll find interesting. He's a dynamic personality. Now he's running for U.S. Senate. And if you want to get to know that guy as a candidate for U.S. Senate, all you got to do is watch our podcast, Just Right Podcast with him. And then last night's new edition of the podcast came out, and it was cool.
Yeah, it was good. By the way, I dropped a link to the Jared Hudson full podcast in the comments of the live stream. Y'all can click on that and check it out. Go figure out who Jared Hudson is for yourself.
Yep. And last night's podcast, Just Right Podcast with Phil Williams, is with a guy named Conrad Thompson. Conrad Thompson is now the world's largest podcaster of professional wrestling. Go figure. And he's from right here in Alabama. He was even inducted into the World Wrestling Hall of Fame. And he's Ric Flair's son-in-law. He calls himself an accidental podcaster. He's a mortgage banker. And the next thing you know, he's just a fan. And next thing you know, he's a podcaster. And now he's known worldwide. He puts together some of the biggest World Wrestling Federation events anywhere. And yeah, Jared Hudson is the first one, and Conrad Thompson was the second one. And we have another coming out next week. All right, let me jump on a few things that are happening. There's a story out right now that is really something, and I'm looking at it. It just came up on Fox News. the Trump administration does not sit idle. And we're looking at a story that I'm just now getting my head around. But the Department of Homeland Security, Secretary Noam, released a video honoring a Marine Corps veteran named Nicholas Quetz. And Nicholas Quetz died at the hands of the Sinaloa cartel. We're learning that the Department of Homeland Security says it is taking, quote unquote, decisive action to address this. I have said before that we are looking at the possibility, now that Trump has named the cartels to be terrorist entities, we're looking at the possibility that U.S. military action could at any given time happen against cartel facilities, cartel bank accounts, cartel operations, cartel cross-border, oh, by the way, maybe even cartels behind the border. I don't know what's going to happen here, but here's the quote. You ready? It says, quote, drug cartels are being called what they truly are, foreign terrorist organizations. Hang on, my screen decided to refresh. Foreign terrorist organizations. And it goes on to say that the Nicholas, the young Marine we're talking about, that Nicholas was killed at a Sinaloa cartel checkpoint on his way to Rocky Point, Mexico with friends just a few months ago. The cartel members attempted to steal his pickup truck before shooting him in the back and then again through the heart, ending his life at 31 years old. The Trump administration says they are taking some form of decisive action. What does that mean? Well, DHS says they will take decisive action to dismantle drug cartels, and that an executive order has been signed since the first day Trump came into office, designating them foreign terrorist organizations, giving law enforcement the ability to crack down on anything and everything necessary. What are they going to do yet? I don't know. But I do know this. They're saying, watch out, because something's about to happen. So whether it'll wind up being just sanctions, whether they'll wind up, shutting down their operations that they can see, or whether they're going to drop a, guided munition into a drug lab somewhere in a jungle of northern Mexico, wait and see. I don't know. But that story's breaking as we speak, and I'm curious to see where it goes. What do you think, man?
I think we need some SEAL Team 6, or we need some, Army Rangers. We need some Special Forces guys to, go. And I fully believe, I mean, it may not be easy. I'm not saying we won't lose any guys if that were to happen, but I feel like we need to send some of our best to go and deal with it, and don't have to declare war on the cartel, which, I mean, that may be effectively doing so. But I think we need to send some targeted guys who are trained, the best of our best to go in there and handle this. I think it could be resolved, maybe not quickly, but it could be resolved. I think if we do that.
Here's what I picture happening, and this is pure speculation, but here's what I picture happening. I could see a special operations team locating in the jungles the operations that they want to target. I could see them laying on the site and calling in whatever gets called in. I could also see us putting drones overhead that have the capability to launch munitions from 10,000 feet. And I could also see us then wanting to do on-the-ground bomb damage assessment and even video it so we can say, look what just happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can also see at the same time, we find out how those drug labs that we just put some munitions down the pipeline of, I can also see that we can figure out where their bank accounts are, and the United States decides to seize those bank accounts, shut down their money flow, and then take the money and put it into something like, counter drug operations. We take their money and we use it back against them. Can we do all that? Sure, we can do all that. Will we do all that? There's been no administration in modern history that I think was willing to do it more so than what we have right now. But once we do that, it is an entirely new game. Mexico's not going to be happy if we put boots on the ground inside their border. The only way it would work with Mexico being happy about it is for it to be a joint operation. But I don't think we can trust the Mexican government.
There's so many of the cartels embedded in that.
Oh,
that'd be tipping our hand more than Yeah.
I mean, there ain't no way.
Yeah.
And there are any number of cartel security forces that are former Mexican military.
Mm-hmm.
They get the skills necessary, then they come out and they get paid to be, the cartel boss's personal security detail, or they guard the drug labs, or they become the enforcers. And and some of them wind up running their own mini cartels, and then it's a mess. But I'll tell you right now, ain't no way Mexico is going to clean up its own self.
No,
This is big.
I think us shutting down the border has thrown a big wrench in their plans already. But I think if we can at least give them something to think about, where they're looking over their shoulder, they're worried about, is this building going to randomly go boom or something? Or if financially, if we can just, cause some chaos without necessarily, like you said, having boots on the ground, giving them something else to think about, that could effectively, that on top of securing the border, they could just, tie themselves in a knot almost. I mean, it won't be simultaneous, it won't be quick, but I think we got to do something to just throw wrenches in their plans.
I think we absolutely do, and I think it needs to be overt. You can start covert, but end overt, and then make sure that. And I don't think we even have to claim credit. Something blows up, and the United States does like Israel does, and goes, "Huh? How'd that happen?
Funny how that works.
Wow, hand of God, I guess. I don't know.
I wonder if the cartel uses pagers. Maybe that could help.
Oh shoot! Dustin from Hillsboro just checked in. He says, "Put the fear of God in the cartel. Send in the warthogs." Man, I'm telling you right now, one of the worst things that's happened was the basically them taking the A-10 Warthog off the line. We're losing them. We're about to have all of them out of service here pretty soon. But yeah, I think what you're looking at here is a Reaper Predator drone. Crazy story. I'll tell this before we go to the break. I still got the message traffic. Did I tell you this? I still got the message traffic. So when I infilled into Afghanistan, my team came out of Uzbekistan. It's got a base called K2 or Karshi-Khanabad, and we came in on a special operations Talon. It's a MC-130 special operations capable troop transport. They dropped us into Mazar-e Sharif, and from Mazar-e Sharif, we then had to go like 10 hours overland to our site, which was a place called Kunduz. And so it was a SF team, special forces team, and my team caravanning in civilian vehicles, like old, we had like literally old Toyota trucks and all kinds of stuff getting over there. I still got the paper message traffic we printed off, where we were told after the fact, when you travel, you will from now on use predetermined checkpoints. Since you did not call in predetermined checkpoints, a CIA Predator drone had you cited as a potential convoy target. And so I still got the message. Somehow or another, someone didn't pull the trigger and take out my convoy while we were traveling on like day 3 of the war. That
is scary.
But anyway, we can do that. We can do that to a cartel boss. And there have been Tom Clancy books written about this, and it seems like Tom Clancy always winds up having something that winds up coming true. It just takes a few years. But Clear and Present Danger, Tom Clancy book, taking out drug cartels in their backyard. Wait and see. All right, we're taking a break. Last break of the day. Text it in. Tell us what you think. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. JT Lacey Springs, he says, make Mexico the 51st state for a year, clean it up, and then give it back. Now, hang on. If we're going to invest in it like that, I want to own it.
Oh, why would we give it back?
I ain't saying. Come on. They listen. There's actually some nice stuff there. They got some good beachfront. I mean, nah, we don't want it. We don't want it. I'd rather have Canada.
Well, apparently Trump did say, allegedly, this is Trump saying this. He may be playing it up, but he claims that they're mulling over becoming the 51st state.
Mexico?
No, Canada.
Oh, Canada. I saw that.
So the delegation is thinking about it.
He said they really want to be in the Golden Dome. Well, and he told them that's not going to happen for free.
That could be intriguing to them. Like, seriously, like to have America defend you with a, Golden Dome sort of thing.
It's asking a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure Mississippi doesn't want to be annexed by Alabama.
Yeah.
I'm just, saying. So, Texas is not going to, adopt New Mexico and Arizona. It's not going to happen. And we're probably not going to adopt Canada.
Well, this could be the upside of them electing a soft, squishy Mark Carney instead of a Pierre Poilievre who would have, told Trump to go pound sand. I think Carney could be.
If Pierre Poilievre had gotten elected in Canada, I guarantee you what he would have said was, we will join the Golden Dome. And I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll fund part of it. And it would have been like this happy partnership.
He was anti-Trump, though.
Poilievre, you think?
Oh, yeah. He was. He was his whole campaign was Trump's trying to bully us. I'm going to stick up to Trump sort of thing, which, I don't know.
I'm disappointed to hear that.
Well, that's why I think Carney could be better for us in the long term. Be there.
Dang. I still think there's a chance we might buy to Greenland.
I haven't heard much of that lately.
It's been quiet, but it doesn't have to become a state. It can become a territory.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they get all the benefits, and some of the perks, and we get a lot of space.
We get a lot of their mineral or their or whatever oil, however they got over there.
Yeah, and we got some good snow skiing. John from Huntsville has the grades in. He says Dale Jackson gets an A+ for finally fixing WVNN. Nice. He said Jeff Poor also gets an A+ for his fantastic performance, which means JP and Phil are today's co-winners with an A+ for their outstanding performances. Thank you very much. Thank you. Congratulations, he says. By the way, he said, I would have made JP the outright winner, but his enthusiasm towards Nick Saban was a little too much to be today's outright winner.
He's the one that brought up Nick Saban.
Maybe he baited you in and you took the bait.
So then this doesn't seem like a fair teacher then, if he's going to bait you to fail.
Just saying. All right, listen, we got a great show later on tomorrow. I know that Butters is out of town, so Scotty Buttram is going to be joining us for some Buttram and Lee at 3:30. He always does an amazing job when he calls in. He usually winds up getting all kinds of accolades, and last time I think he won, didn't he?
He did.
And then Jared Hudson, we do believe, is going to be on the line with us again tomorrow at 3, talk about his campaign, and we'll see where all that goes. I'm pretty stoked about it. And then I got to tell you this, a story just broke a minute ago. It's got me curious. So within the Make America Something Again family, there is the MAHA, the Make America Healthy Again. RFK Jr. is wearing out the food industry in a good way for us, I mean. And we're also finding out that there's stuff out there that I didn't know existed. So did you know, JP, that Skittles has been using something called titanium dioxide as one of its ingredients?
Nope. And my exact reaction to that was, I love Skittles. So I was a little bit appalled. Skittles
are addicting.
They're great. Yes.
Skittles are like, as a grandparent, I can tell you Skittles are a staple.
Yeah.
And I look at this and go, okay, what is titanium dioxide? Why has it been in Skittles? Why was it ever necessary? Why did you do that to us? Well, so Skittles apparently has been using this because titanium dioxide is something that is used, how's it worded here, to help make, it's an additive used to make a wide range of candies and sauces more opaque, and basically it's a color thing.
Yeah, because for some reason, like, so all of this stuff that RFK has been getting rid of, my initial reaction was, wow, I didn't know that was in there in the first place. Like, what? You're telling me this whole time that's been in there? But it's all been related to making it look a certain way. And it's like, why? What is it? I mean, are you that, greedy and think that if your food looks slightly better that people will buy it more and willing to risk their health to that degree?
Yeah.
It's like,
how about do that with the packaging and leave the actual food itself alone?
Exactly.
But it says right here there are 4,362 candies that contain this titanium dioxide, according to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's food. So they've known this has been approved, and the European Union actually banned it several years ago.
It's funny. Yeah, Europe as always has like half of the ingredients that we do in our food.
There is no telling, man.
And we're the ones that are way more obese. So.
We are a nation filled with lab rats. We are a lab rat country. You know, hey, here's something. It causes cancer. That's okay. It makes the food look good. Oh, slap it on there. Just saying.
And there's people that benefit off of, unhealthy Americans. So,
well, my grandkids aren't getting Skittles anytime soon until I know the titanium dioxide